Hashtag Doggy People with Phil Lassman.
So, Peter, really good to know all about you personally. I mean, I could sit and talk to you for hours about that. But now, obviously, theme of this show is animals, as you know. And do you know what? I would like to ask you, when did you first become aware of animals?
Well, as a child, when we had our first dog, we had two dogs. One was like a sheepdog called Bobby, and the other was a chocolate brown Labrador, whose name I forgot. So that would have been my first. I think I would have been about 5 or 6. So added to the cocktail of the amazing Irish household, apart from adding a lodger with all the family, we also had 2 dogs, and my memories of the 2 dogs are my best memories of my childhood.
Peter, I'm sorry to actually have to ask you this, but it's something that really infuriates me, makes me very sad, and I want to ask you about it because I know that you have the courage to go and visit the Yulin meat festival and the meat market, and I don't want to go on too much about it, but I know there were several horrors that you saw there. Is that ever going to end, Peter?
Let me just correct that. I haven't been to Yulin. I've been to the meat markets, the extreme markets in Indonesia. Yulin is in China, and
Right.
there has been legislation that's been brought in to the Chinese animal welfare legislation that now takes dogs and cats off the livestock list. So Yulin will carry on for as long as those misled, in my opinion,
Yes.
elderly men who believe that eating dog or cats do something special for them in terms of either their libido or whatever. The Yulin Festival is not a long, it's only been going for about 10 years, and it was created as a festival to celebrate lychees and dog meat. So it's a purely, it's not a tradition, or to use that dodgy word, culture. It's something that a commercial enterprise that was started about 10 years ago. And of course, a lot of dog meat traders got involved with it because it was a way of making money, but also of raising awareness of lychees.
I think one of the most amazing things, though, about modern technology and Twitter that, we're all able to band together these days and make our voices heard. Of course, we need inspirational characters like yourself to lead us into that. But I mean, I can see some progress, but we need to keep it going. We need to keep up the pressure.
One mustn't stop because, I mean, these things, if they are stopped publicly, they'll go underground anyway. And also, it's always a very a delicate path to travel because people don't like being told what to do, and particularly when they consider it to be an attack on what they call culture, or what we might call culture. So you have to approach it very, very in a very dimensioned way, and always engage with kindness and compassion. As you know, I believe that the killing of any animal for food is unkind anyway, but it is just so strange to us, being a companion animal country, to even consider eating a dog. And clearly, it's not that surprising to a lot of people in Southeast Asia, although I hasten to add, it's not illegal to eat dog in the United Kingdom. You can, if you want to, kill your dog and eat it, and nobody's going to sue you for doing that. This is all linked again to this crazy idea that some people interpret from the Bible, I believe, which is dominion over all other creatures on this planet, which I think is a misunderstanding of that anyway. But even if it were the case, for dominion to include the abuse and torture that we impose on animals is a gross misreading of anything to do with the generosity of belief in a higher being, as far as I'm concerned.
I think that attitudes are changing with the younger generation, and I think that the new generation that's coming through has a different perspective and a different thought pattern when it comes to the preservation of animals. I mean, obviously they're very aware of climate change, the younger generation, and they're making their voice heard. There's millions of those people, I call them young persons, mustn't say children. But, you know, obviously the hope is that the new generation that's coming through will, in their lifetimes, possibly virtually extinguish this ghastly thing that our generation has had to deal with.
That's a hope that I would certainly support.
Do you share that view? You do.
Well, to a degree, I do. I'm also very attached to a coalition called the Link, which is the European coalition, which investigates the effects that cruelty on animals, children viewing cruelty to animals, how it impacts on their life, how it informs their relationship to violence as they grow. Like, for instance, throughout Eastern Europe, there is a terrible stray dog problem. So in villages and in cities, families and children see stray dogs dealt with in the most brutal manner. So they see dogs being poisoned, they see dogs being beaten to death, they see dogs being hanged, they see dogs being shot, they see the most awful things happen to these creatures that we call companions. Now, what happens is that this society, in a societal way, impacts on their development. And this is a proven psychological fact now, that those children who are witnessing this kind of violence go on to accept it and become violent themselves. They witness the violence that happens between their parents, because their parents also accept this kind of violence. So until all of us as a society, accept that we cannot be violent to all species on this planet, then sadly, so many things are never going to change. Even climate change isn't going to change, because a lot of the violence that happens to animals is affecting climate change. And by that, if you look at the slaughter in industrial intensive animal agriculture, if you think that there are in excess of 80 billion animals killed each year to feed 6 billion carnivores, if you think of the gases that are emitted from that procedure, there is more damage caused to our environment by animal agriculture than any other industrial thing that happens on our planet. So this is all linked to, will this ever stop? That's why I choose to be a vegan, because I think that all violence needs to stop in our lives, whether it be the violence of killing a dog on the street, or shooting a magnificent creature as a trophy hunter, or any area in which we exercise violence on other creatures. And it happens in the greatest sense in animal agriculture. So I think Ricky Gervais said there will be no problems if the world were vegan, and I agree with him about that. So in answer to, it's such a huge question, and I'm sorry if I'm taking very many routes to try and get back to it. This is only going to change when society really asks, each individual asks themselves the question, what right do I have to treat every other species on this planet in the way that we treat them? And when you ask that question seriously, and you start looking into the intensive cruelty that happens over the whole planet in terms of how we deal with other species, whether it be destroying the rainforest, whether it is animal agriculture, whether it is fish farming, and what we're doing to the oceans. Those are all the questions we have to ask each other in a very dimensioned way to actually start to deal with how we make our planet healthy, how we make ourselves emotionally healthy, and how we solve the problems of what we are doing to other species on the planet.
Last question, Peter. How do you view the future of animal welfare?
I think that if the pressure is continued to not allow welfare to distort rights and concentrate on rights, the future will be bright. If one allows the world to hide behind the cushion of welfare alone, we are not going to solve the problem.
Cool. Okay. Well, look, what I know the main way to solve this problem, and I share your view on it. And I'm just going to say, Peter, that you are probably single-handedly responsible for inspiring more people to go vegan than anyone else I know. I mean, because of you, I have not touched a meat product for about, it's nearly 3 years. I'm a newcomer. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. I used to eat meat, and I was brought up on it. But a combination of being married to Ira, who slaps my hand every time I even think about it. But actually, and I'm not patronizing you now when I say this, you have been a single most influence in my life for really thinking about packing that lark up, because and if I may just indulge myself and tell you why it was you, is because anyone can say, you know what, meat's not that good for you, and the doctors can say, don't eat so much meat, and you go, oh, all right, I'll think about it, a burger please, and I'll have some fries with that. But I tell you what makes you unique, Peter, is that, and this is just from my perspective, it's not only that meat is not good for you, too much red meat in the system. In fact, my father died very prematurely because he had cancer of the colon and all that sort of thing, and he ate nothing but meat. But you, Peter, have introduced my brain to the ethical part, the ethical side of it. And as you've just covered, by slaughtering millions of animals that we've got to eat. So I sort of gave up eating meat, not just because someone told me to, it's because I thought of the suffering of that particular animal before I considered the medical implication, if that makes sense.
Total sense.
And it was you who prompted me to take that route of thinking.
Well, I'm so pleased to hear that. Thank you very much, Phil, for saying that.
It's just the truth.
Well, you see, I'm not that far away from you, Phil, because I was a meat eater all of my life up until over 10 years ago, when I watched a film called Earthlings, which deals with industrialized slaughter throughout the world. And I would advise everyone, if they have the courage to watch it. I watched the film. I couldn't speak Earthlings. Yes, I couldn't speak for 3 hours after I watched the film, and I decided then and there I would never eat meat again, like you, purely for ethical reasons, because I could not support the cruelty that these poor creatures go through in order to give me the momentary pleasure of a steak or a chop or a, it wasn't fair. And I believe that one sticks to things, certainly from my point of view, and clearly you're saying the same thing yourself, if you choose an ethical route rather than a diet route. If you're just doing it for dietary reasons, you'll fall off,
Quite right.
I think it has to be to an ethical commitment. But having said that, I would encourage anyone just to try it and see how they get on and see the effect. I have to say that my biggest regret in life was that I didn't become vegan in my 20s. I became vegan in my 60s, so I wasted 40 years of benefit to my body, but also of what I could have done for so many animals. And I have to say that I'm 74 in a week's time, or a couple of weeks' time. Physically, I've never felt better in my life. My digestion is better. My diet is much more exciting. It's interesting. And it's delicious. It's absolutely fantastic. So there is so much to recommend it, but the most important thing is it connects your head with your heart. And if you can connect your head and your heart, then I think you're going in the right direction.
Beautifully put, as only you can. So I want to talk to you now about your charity work. Now, I've only got 3 days to cover this, by the way, because I know you're patron of about 697 different animal charities around the world. May I ask, first of all, I'd like to know, what actually is the exact number of charities that you're a patron of at the moment? I've got a lot of ink in my pen.
I hope that's not a euphemism.
It is.
But, I think it's certainly over 20. I'd have to kind of go through it. So it's a lot. I think I now have to kind of stop taking on. It's very difficult for me, as I said to you before, because I think I'm known as the man who can't say no. So when someone comes and they say, look, I always try to help. But I'm finding, particularly during this period of time, these last 6 months, it's been incredibly draining and incredibly demanding, because every single day, and I'm happy to do it, there are so many things that I need to do. It is a lot. I try to cover as many animals as I possibly can, like I saved the Asian elephant, which is a terrific charity, trying to stop the cruelty of tourism and elephant rides in Asia. And of course, the Moon Bears, Animals Asia, which is, going to the sanctuary in Chengdu, which I did about 11 years ago, was a life-changing experience for me, to be close to 150 bears, all in enclosures, of course, and given their rights, and not there for me to go and view them. But I was there not as I was there as not just as a kind of visitor to a zoo, but as an ambassador for these great creatures. So they aren't designed to do things for humans. They live their lives, and we are lucky to watch it if we can. It's the most beautiful charity, most beautiful, one of 3 sanctuaries they have. And I left my heart there. I just thought, this is magnificent. And when I think about moon bears, I can't help getting a little bit kind of moist behind the eyes, because if you think that these beautiful, big, stoic creatures live 30 years of their lives locked in a crush cage, and they have their bile extracted daily, which is so painful. They have nothing. These creatures that can travel up to 50 miles a day are incarcerated for their whole lives. They go insane, they go mad. And so that really changed my life, and that led me, I think, into a broader caring for all wild animals, seeing that wild animals have to be in the wild. And that was a kind of on the road to Damascus moment for me. And that did change my life. And I think that informed my, I wanted to say appetite, but it isn't really appetite, my willingness and ability to support as many charities as I possibly can. And so there are bears, elephants, and I've just recently taken on the ambassadorship of a charity in Cameroon. It's the Limbi Wildlife Center, and they specialize in rehabilitating damaged animals, mainly primates, chimpanzees and gorillas, and the African grey parrot. I just am amazed by groups of people who work away in places that you never have really heard of or would never visit, who are doing their absolute best to save creatures that have been brutalized by humans in one way or another. So yes, there are a lot. International Animal Rescue, which does so much to protect the rainforest and help our nearest relative in the animal kingdom, the orangutan. And I feel in a strange way, sorry to use a kind of ecclesiastic word, but I feel blessed in my life that there are so many things that I feel passionate about, when a lot of my friends feel passionate about playing golf. And I feel passionate about our planet. I feel passionate about all of its inhabitants, humans included. And I feel passionate about wildlife. And I feel passionate about the beauty of all the species that all contribute something important to our planet. And so I see I need to cut back on the ones that I support. I mean, I'll keep adding to them because each one seems to me to kind of provide something else that is essential to our planet.
Question: how do you actually decide on which charities to support? What's your thought process when somebody says, Peter, will you represent our charity? What's the process that you adopt to before making a decision to take that charity on?
Strangely enough, the Limby Wildlife Centre, which is the most recent one, came about because they were watching the battle against trophy hunting, because of course, it impacts them where they are as well. And so they approached me to be a partner to them, I mean, as in being an ambassador. So I looked at the work that they do. I looked at the location. They were in Central Africa. I looked at their website and I spoke to the team who were running it on a Zoom and asked them what they do, what their daily lives are like, what they're aiming for, what their beliefs are. And so I do a bit of investigation. I want some contact with the people who are running it. I want to see that they are absolutely doing what it says on the tin, because I have in the past, in the early days of my life on Twitter, I have been sucked into kind of scams like we all have, and so now I am very careful. I do a lot of research on the charity that I am asked to support, and generally I can cross-check it, through other people I know within the world of conservation and care. So I just do a lot of detective work, and then if I think, yes, this is something that I want to support, I do. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, of course, I'm very privileged to know that one of your first outings with an animal charity was, in fact, All Dogs Matter.
Indeed.
And when you got together with the lovely Ira Moss, who I happen to be married to. In fact, we've got Ira Moss coming on the show in a few weeks' time. The deal is I do all the hoovering and washing up for the next 5 years. And we've also got Michelle Clark coming on from Dots. Same deal as I've got with Ira. I have to do her washing and ironing and hoovering for the next 5 years. But it will be worth it. It will be worth it. I mean, obviously, without you, Peter, All Dogs Matter wouldn't have grown the way it has today. And
well, it's nice of you to say that. I think it would have done anyway. But yes, I mean, I have a great deal to thank All Dogs Matter for, and the team who run it so superbly. Because yes, that was the major step into the world of animal support from my point of view. I mean, I learned a huge amount about what I didn't know about the problems of dogs in the UK. And again, in relation to your question about how do I choose a charity, when I found out precisely the problems in dog rescue and dog abandonment in our country, I said to Ira, I'd like to go to the pounds. I'd like to see what happens to these dogs. So I visited the pounds. I went with Ira, or I went, with other people. I also, sadly, this wasn't through All Dogs Matter, because it's a no-kill shelter, but I went to those big vet charities that sadly have to euthanize dogs because they are not rehomable. And I sat and held the dogs because, again, I didn't want to be someone dealing with this from a distance. I wanted to experience how awful it was. And that, I think, informed my ability to commit completely, as I did, to All Dogs Matter in its early days and help its development. And as I say, I think it would have developed beautifully under Ira anyway, because she runs it fantastically with her great team. And we had lots of teething problems, if you remember, 10 years ago, before it became a registered charity.
I do indeed.
And they were all overcome, and it's become, I think, in a very short period of time, it has become, a really well-respected charity within the charity world. And I am both very grateful to All Dogs Matter for the experience it has given me, and I'm also very proud of its success.
Well, thank you for saying that, Peter. And they are very, very proud of you. And I mean, we're all absolutely knocked out with what you and a certain chap called Ricky Gervais have done recently in respect of the lovely the Brewdog Beer and the lovely Brewdog. I mean, tell us a little bit about that. That was an awesome idea, I have to say, and it's now in practice and it's doing brilliantly. So I don't know how you did that, but tell us.
I have to tell you, that's all down to Ricky Gervais. I mean, so many things are down to Ricky, because Ricky is remarkable, and I have a very close working relationship with him in all areas of animal welfare. He really, really does support in a way that most international celebrities do not. I mean, they will come in with just one flag and then they'll wander off. But Ricky, he stays with it. He is a deeply, deeply committed man. And I really admire him hugely. And he's been a great supporter of All Dogs Matter from day one. And so many charities now. But Brewdog came about because he was drinking a beer and said what it was. And Brewdog asked him if he said, would he be interested in promoting it? And Ricky, rather than saying, well, yeah, give me $500,000, he said, I tell you what, I'll do it if you donate the profits to a charity. And then he said, I'll speak to Peter about it. And we got together. And of course, All Dogs Matter and DOTS were the two charities, both London-based, both dealing with crisis problems in the dog community. They were the obvious choices for Brewdog, basically.
Well, I can. Sorry, Peter, carry on.
No, go on. No, all I was going to say is that it's basically down to Ricky, this whole campaign, and I was just glad to jump in and push it along as well. It was just absolutely fantastic.
Well, listen, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, Ricky is awesome. I mean, if you can have a word in his ear to come on and tell us a bit more about that, that would be great. But I know it's been successful because I popped into All Dogs Matter early in the week when they got their delivery. They're all completely drunk. And they're out, we're having a great time, Peter and Ricky. No. Actually, I cannot tell you how over the moon Ira and her team are. And of course, they are indebted to Ricky for coming up with the idea, and for yourself to promote it in the way that only you can. So, I mean, this is fantastic. And of course, Michelle Clark at DOTS, she's having great benefit from it. I'm looking forward to talking to her about it. I know she's also knocked out and over the moon. So, I mean, Ricky, if you're watching this, you are awesome and amazing. Thank you so much. I'd love you to come on and chat to us about that. But listen, I'm not going to get in anyone's way. I mean, I know you're doing great work. Part of the reason I'm doing this show is that for the first time ever, it will give me a real job. I'll actually be able to contribute and help you guys, because I'm normally just following in Ira's wake and your wake, sweeping up. But I'm hoping I can do something of use this time.
I think you're underselling yourself there, Phil, because you have been fantastic in all the years I've known you, comparing and making it a very interesting event of all of the events we've done for All Dogs Matter over the years. And you hold them all together and you compare them beautifully and you keep it going. You do great work.
Cheers, Peter. Well, that's the least I can do, but I'm hoping to do a lot more. Now, coming back, so we've been talking about charities. There are so many dog rescue charities in this country, and I am hoping to get to you all one by one. I'm also I'm good friends with some charities abroad, dog rescue charities as well. And the great thing about Zoom is I'll be able to get those on the show as well. Peter, what I would like to do, I don't know what you think about this idea, but in each show we do, I would like to ask my guest if they would like to make an appeal on behalf of a charity that they are associated with, and perhaps we can invite some people to make a donation during the show. So I know it's a difficult shot, isn't it? Because you can make an appeal on behalf of any number of charities, but I think I'd just like to give it a whirl. Let's see if we can raise some money.
Well, okay, I will name one specific charity, and
Cool.
Which of course you will understand is the one where I left my heart, and that's Animals Asia, of course.
Of course.
Because there is, Animals Asia have a wonderful sanctuary in Vietnam, and they also have a message of agreement with the Vietnam government that they will end bear bile farming in Vietnam by 2022. But they need to raise a huge amount of money in order to build 2 sanctuaries in order to make that possible. And they've started the fundraising campaign, and they run the campaign under the wonderful logo, "The only cure is kindness." So I would encourage all of your viewers and listeners to support Animals Asia and to support their campaign to end bile farming in Vietnam by 2022. If we can achieve that, it will be remarkable, and it will send a message throughout the whole of Southeast Asia. Moon bears deserve it, and the team at Animals Asia deserve it, and I, as one of their ambassadors, deserve it too. So I would just say, please, please support Animals Asia.
And what's the best way to donate, Peter, to Animals Asia?
Best way to donate to Animals Asia is to Google Animals Asia. It will take you straight to their site, or you can follow them at handle Animals Asia.
All right.
Also, you can find out more about them by Googling at Moon Bear Jill, who is Jill Robinson, who is the founder of Animals Asia. You could, of course, Phil, have Jill Robinson on your program, and she will give you a wonderful, it will be about, they have a dog and cat program, Animals Asia, but she would be the most remarkable woman for you to speak to. I think you may have met her, but if you haven't, she is amazing.
I have had the pleasure of meeting Jill, and actually, Peter, you've given me a great idea here. You've thrown up something I wanted to explain. I mean, although the show is called Doggy People, of course, this show is about people behind causes that help dogs, and people who love dogs, people who like dogs. No, it's not necessarily that we must only talk about dogs. I mean, I'm sure Jill loves dogs, but he happens to be in the bear business. Myself, I mean, I'm a massive dog lover, and I love people who look after dogs. It's not my actual business. That's not what I do every day. And I'd like to make that distinction, everyone, while I'm talking to Peter, if I may, that I don't want to, some people might have the idea that all I do every day is get up in the morning and do what Ira does and other animal rescue people do, and that is work constantly to help dogs. I do not. I actually am in the business of rehoming humans. In fact, I earn my living by providing specialist accommodation for people with special needs. That's what I actually do. And I have at the moment about 250 people. I have duty of care for 250 human beings who would otherwise struggle to find accommodation. And so that's a very humbling sort of job I've done. I've done it for 25 years now, and I work with an amazing team of welfare people and supporters, but that's another thing. I mean, I get that done. I'm blessed to have a very good team that work with me. But of course, when I'm not doing that, my passion is in supporting IRA and animal welfare. So yes, I would love. That's a bit of a long answer, but I'd love to speak to Jill. If you could have a word in her ear, that would
Yeah,
be
definitely, no problem.
awesome.
Well, it's interesting, Phil. I never knew that about you. I knew that you were in the accommodation business, but I didn't know it's kind of linked in the way that it does. So perhaps you should do a program about that. But just a point I'd like to make is what is interesting related to what you're saying, that doggy people create the pathway to caring about all species. That's very, very opposite as far as I am concerned, because one of my dogs, his name was DJ, he was a border collie cross with a spaniel, and he had a black coat with a white bib, so I called him DJ for dinner jacket. It looked like he was wearing a dinner jacket. He was the most remarkable dog. I had him for 15 years, and sadly I lost him 5 years ago. But he penetrated my heart in the most remarkable way. And it was he also that opened my heart to all other species. Because when I looked at DJ and we used to talk to each other, and great for an actor, because he always looked like he was listening. And I would look into his eyes and I knew that he understood me and I understood him. And it was DJ that also became a gatekeeper for me to caring about all other species and learning about all other species. And it's very strange that there are people who say, yes, I am a compassionate animal lover. Look, I love my dog. And then you talk to them about trophy hunting. They don't want to become involved with that. They say, don't tell me about it. You talk to them about mass agricultural slaughter. They say, oh, well, oh no, I don't want to talk about it. Put me off my dinner. And what's your dinner? Oh, roast lamb. You see, so there is this cognitive dissonance that occurs when you start going into the territory of people's appetite. I talked to a dog meat trader at an extreme market in Indonesia where they were blowtorching dogs and eviscerating them. And it was one of the markets where the pandemic happened in Wuhan in China, but this was Indonesia, where you have all species crammed together. It was disgusting. The blood on the floor, the intestines. It was horrific. It was hell, the worst experience of my life. I will never forget it. And I was talking to this man. I was making a film for the ending of the dog meat trade in Indonesia. And I was talking to this man who was a dog meat trader who killed dogs and cooked them, or stunned them and cooked them before they were dead. And I said to him, why do you hate dogs? And he said, I don't hate dogs, I have a dog. I said, what, you have a dog? He said, I have a dog as a pet. This was not in English, of course, but I had an interpreter. And I said to him, would you eat your dog? And he said, no, of course not. If I want to eat my dog, I come here to the market. If I want to eat dog, I come to the market. So there was a complete schism in his compassion, that he loved his dog, but he was happy to kill dogs. And so spread that further. You love your dog, but you're happy for baby sheep, for chickens, for fish, for cows, for all other species to be killed so that you can eat. That's the same cognitive dissonance. So you're using Doggy People as a pathway into a greater compassion is, I think, a very valuable pathway.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. That's what I'm hoping to achieve with it. It's not specifically a program about the dogs itself. It's about people who love dogs, and generally speaking, most people, I think, if you did speak to them about other animal issues, they would feel a compassion, they would feel an interest, because if you've got the compassion in your heart to appreciate a dog, to love a dog, to home a dog, to love a dog, to look after it, as I said quite recently, I mean, a dog, I know some people refer to them as pets, but I believe, and I know that Ira feels the same, that a dog, when you welcome a dog into your life and into your family, they become a family member. And I'm not going to go into it right now, but the issue we had recently with this tremendous rising dog theft, it's not being treated as it should be. The penalties are not stiff enough. And because I know there's a preconception amongst some people in authority that it's a and it's a missing pet, and a pet's gone missing. Well, hang on. I personally feel it's not. It's like stealing a dog is like kidnapping a family member. It's like, God forbid, a child has been snatched from school and bunked into the back of a van. I know some people might say, oh, you're being a bit dramatic now, a bit extreme. But, you've got to understand that that's my view. And I know to certain single people who have their dog as their only companion, it is like losing a brother or a mother or a sister. But, I mean, that's a separate, another issue.
Well, that's to do with the fact that dog ownership is all part of the scheme of owning an object. So the dog becomes an object. It's like owning a bicycle or a television set or a car. And so once you start dealing with the ownership of the dog as that you are owning a living creature, which is precisely as you described it, a member of your family. You have to treat it with the same care and respect. They are not pets, as you say, they are your family members. And so
they are beating hearts. Listen, we've covered a lot of serious stuff. I've got a bit of nonsense for you now, which I'm going to have to put every guest that comes on the show. It's called Doggy People Dabble. Doggy People Dabble. And I'm going to ask you 3 silly questions. Are you ready for question number 1? Go for it. Here we go. Now, Peter, if you woke up tomorrow morning as a 20-year-old, what would be the first thing you did?
Reach for my phone.
Reach for your phone. And what would be the second thing you did?
Second thing I did, as a 20-year-old.
Yes, as a 20-year-old.
Am I alone in bed?
That's your choice. I don't know. I don't know how good you are.
Well, I think if I'm a 20-year-old made with a partner, I'd probably reach for the partner.
Yes, that was a beautiful way of putting that.
If I am a solo 20-year-old in bed and I don't have another living creature of any kind next to me, then I might. We know the joke about that is what so many men reach for. I'd probably even at 20 want to go to the loo. So
yes,
I'd probably reach for the old fella.
You said it. Brilliant, Peter. Brilliant. Oh God, oh my. Oh, I was ties me in nicely to my second question. What's your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure.
Bet you haven't got one because you're too damn good. You're a saint.
I'm not too damn good. I mean, my guilty pleasure for the major part of my life was consuming huge quantities of wine, which I now no longer do. I haven't drunk wine for now. I'm going into my 7th year. I mean, I do drink beer, but I don't like beer as much as I love the wine. So my guilty pleasure would have been white Burgundy, which I've now dispensed with. I suppose a guilty pleasure now would be that, having the odd beer, really. I like IPA, India Pale Ale very much.
So alcohol then, booze, yeah.
Well, no, that might be interpreted as being in excess. I don't drink to excess, but I did for the major part of my life.
Mm-hmm. No, well, Peter, we wouldn't judge you anyway. I mean, everyone likes to drink, don't they? Now, lastly, I'd nominate you, but who would you nominate as your all-time animal welfare hero? Is that a toughie?
It's a toughie, but I would actually have to say Jill Robinson.
I thought you would say that.
Possibly the most inspiring person I have ever met. And it's strangely enough, I got to meet Jill through All Dogs Matter, because I think Jill heard me talking. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she heard me talking about All Dogs Matter and my feeling about dogs. And they have, as I said, a dog and cat meat program with Animals Asia. And she contacted me and asked me if I would become a patron for their dog and cat program, which I said yes. And I then moved on quickly to the bears after that. And also, it was also linked to Angela and Martin Humphrey.
Oh.
I was walking on the heath for an All Dogs Matter. And she said to me, "Oh, you must come and meet the Animals Asia tent, which is up just a few paces away." And so she took me to the Animals Asia tent, Angela and Martin. So she introduced me to Animals Asia as well. But it was All Dogs Matter, Angela and Martin, Animals Asia.
Jill, well, Jill, we've definitely got to get Jill. Jill's coming out as a bit of a star on the show. And if you excuse me for 1 second, I'm going to ring the bell. Now, doggy people, pay attention. You've just heard Peter. The appeal today is for Jill Robinson and Animals Asia. If you can, to spare a few pounds, please donate to this magnificent charity that Peter's asked us to do. They're fantastic, so do whatever you can. All right, so doggy people, ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for the awesome Mr. Peter Egan. Marvellous. Well, that's the end of our first show, and I must say I'm loving it. Who said that I wouldn't get great guests like Peter Egan? I told you I would. So thanks for joining me, and please join me again for our next episode when our guest will be the lovely Michelle Clark from Dots, Dogs on the Street. She's the fantastic founder. Are you excited? I know that I am. Anyway, that's it from me. Stay safe, love your dog, and cheerio.